Hello, and welcome to quick demonstration or walkthrough on bank feeds in Sage Intacct, particularly for bank accounts in Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. So the purpose of these is to essentially give you general information and guidance as to bank feeds available for APAC bank accounts in Sage Intacct. And just letting you know as well that this may not be exhaustive, but there are references that you can go through. So will be shared in these recording and in this material. So in this session, we will go through how the bank feeds work, particularly for Australia, New Zealand, and Asia, as well as the generic setup considerations using aggregators like SIS, Yodlee, and let's go through other considerations as well that you have to think of when setting up bank feeds. All right, so how bank feeds work? So let's start with Australia. So we have the direct bank feed being provided by SIS data. So with SIS data provides you a direct feeds from the major banks like you have CBA, NAB, Westpac, Bendigo, Macquarie, ANZ, BOQ, Bank of Melbourne, St. George, or Bank SA. So the data through SIS is provided by the service is a once a daily feed of cleared transactions from the previous day, and the data is generally available by 9:30 in the morning, and for each working day, and available, to sync for any application connected to the Sage Banking Cloud. So the application here is requiring you to authorize the bank feeds by the bank. So in most cases, as you can see here, it's done online through the setup process within each application with a PDF form. So we can have a look as well, sample of the CAF of the customer authorization form that is usually being generated when you set up the bank feed, especially if it's coming from SIS. And that PDF form is actually required to be submitted to the banks. And we have instructions there as well in the CAF how to do that. And it has SLA for approval of feeds that, by the banks, which may generally be for 10 working days. That's for SIS. And yeah, so the Sage Banking Cloud is scheduled to retrieve data on the following. So this is the schedule. So we have at least five times that the Sage Banking Cloud retrieves information or the bank transactions, cleared bank transactions from SIS, 5 times or from the previous day. Then at the end of the day, those should be available, if made available by the bank, and SIS will get them, and essentially Sage Banking Cloud will get those information as well from SIS. All right, so just to give you the pros and cons when using SIS, as what I mentioned earlier, right? So SIS is a common aggregator for the major banks, particularly in Australia. So we have the pros here. So it's a secure bank feed option that supports regular bank accounts as well as business bank accounts. And on the other side of it is that SIS doesn't actually support credit card and loan accounts at the moment. So and also says clients that have to hand over confidential internet banking credentials to a third party because you just have to essentially do the connection, and you don't need to provide you the like an online banking details when you try to establish the connection for bank feed through SIS. But the banks do not send transaction details to SIS on weekends. That's one thing, though, that SIS will just be dependent on what the bank is providing them. So, so if it's weekend or public holidays, then those information will not be available to the SIS because the banks will not provide those, but only next banking days, right? So there can be some sort of delays there. And the benefit of connecting through SIS is that the bank feed matches your bank statements accurately, because as we mentioned, only the finalized, right, or the cleared transactions are being um, taken by SIS and eventually retrieved by the Sage Banking Cloud that will be used for bank reconciliation. But it does not have any backward compatibility to retrieve historic transactions that occurred before the bank feed was set up. So if you set up your bank feed, so if you request, let's say today, so it may take like 10 banking days, right? You cannot get information like bank transaction from yesterday or from the past. So it will just get the information from the time the connection has been approved and established. All right, so that's one option. That's an aggregator with SIS. And there's one thing as well, that we have a local contact in SIS in Australia. So we can reach out to them for any concern for SIS. All right, so another aggregator that is available in Australia as well is Yodlee. So Yodlee is an alternative option which provides bank data feeds via a client's online banking portal. So setup is online within the Sage application, and clients will need to provide login credentials. So this is the difference between Yodlee and SIS, because with Yodlee, it's like you are sharing your login information, because when you set up, it's actually asking for your login credentials, just like your online banking, wherein you provide your login details, and aside from banking details, also provides you the password, right? Just in order to establish that process or that connection with your online banking. So it is generally good practice to arrange a restricted login with the bank that only provides access to the read of data. So that's one thing as well that we don't want to be doing. You don't want to be doing anything else aside from retrieving information, right? Banking transactions from your bank. So the login credentials, we would recommend that it's actually just a read access to your bank transaction. So you will not be doing anything else aside from that. So data provided by Yodlee will be what is available through the online access. As well, you can see an online access. So this can include both your cleared or uncleared transactions. Just like when you log in to your online banking, right? You will be seeing even those that are pending and those that are already cleared. So that's the disadvantage, I would think, right, of using Yodlee, because even if it's not cleared yet, then that's available for you um, to be retrieved as a bank transaction that will be available for your bank reconciliation. So presenting here as well the pros and cons using Yodlee. So first here is that the benefit is that it supports any bank account with internet banking, including credit cards. So this is one thing. This is like the workaround that you can actually use, especially for banks, or for us banks or credit cards in Australia, right? So if it if it's not supported by SIS, then you can definitely go to Yodlee in order to um, establish the connection with bank feed, right? So the disadvantage, though, clients must hand over their confidential internet banking credentials to a third party. I think that's what we've mentioned earlier as well, that using Yodlee for as an aggregator for your bank feed, you will be required to key in your login ID and your password as well when you log in through your internet banking. So this is a security concern for many clients, as we know. And to address this concern, as what we said, right, it's recommended that clients arrange a restricted login user just with the read access to their bank data. The benefit, though, of Yodlee is that it has a backward compatibility and can retrieve historic transactions up to 3 months, depending on the bank. So, which is good, right? So, if you're trying to do reconciliation like a few days before maybe you've established the connection, right, you will still be able to retrieve information in the past. And since Yodlee is using the screen scraping technology, this requires clients to update their internet banking credentials with Yodlee, as the credentials, may actually change. So, which means that with Yodlee is a screen scraping technology wherein you provide your login details ID and password, right? So if there's a change in your part, then you would have to reestablish the connection and just update, of course, those login credentials. Otherwise, you will not be able to get any information um, from Yodlee for your bank transactions. The benefit, though, as well for Yodlee is that the bank feed is retrieved from internet banking and may not always match final bank statement. And the cons, or yeah, one of which is that when banks make updates to their UI, screen scraping technology needs to be updated to read the new UI, and this can result in bank feeds failing while update is being performed. So yes, that's just the disadvantage of using Yodlee. So in Australia, what we would recommend is that go ahead, establish the connection through SIS, and if you don't have any option, then you can just, yeah, you have to go through Yodlee, right, in order to get the bank transactions. And we'll go through as well later on as to the bank setup, right, or how you're going to set up the distinction between Yodlee and SIS when it comes to bank feed connection. So that's for Australia. For New Zealand at the moment, yeah, Yodlee is the primary option, which provides bank data feeds via a client's online banking, as what we've seen earlier. So it's Yodlee at the moment, like standard bank feeds aggregator at the moment is with Yodlee for New Zealand. And yeah, just to reiterate, so setup is online within Sensation application, and clients will need to provide their login credentials again, right, just to process, similar to how you process with online banking. And yeah, just to reiterate again, you have that. Um, Make sure that it's best practice to arrange a restricted login with your bank. Just read access primarily to your data. And the data provided by Yodlee will be available through online access, and this can include both cleared and uncleared transactions. So that's just the, because again, it's just you're just accessing your online banking, right? With online banking, you have your pending and you have your cleared transactions in there. So most probably even the pending transactions will already be available for you to retrieve. So it may cause confusion sometimes, right? That's for New Zealand. For Asia, though, yeah, so we have other services for Asia. So let's say if you have for Singapore or Malaysia, if bank feed is actually a requirement, then you have the option to. Here is a link, essentially from the help center, that you can look at other options there, like Access Pay, so which is a third party that provides um, connectivity to your banks in order to retrieve bank transactions for bank reconciliation. That's for Asia, and we don't have standard bank feed aggregator yet, let's say for Singapore or Malaysia. So I would recommend going through the documentation provided by Help Center just to give you an option on if a bank feed is actually required, especially for those countries, then you can have a look at Access Pay for that. All right. Now, so we have the background of the aggregators, right, available for Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. Then let's have a look at how you are going to, set up the bank feed. So again, this is not really exhaustive, but I'm going to show you like distinctions as what you can see with SIS versus Yodlee, because that's a common ask essentially. So generic setup considerations, we have our SIS, right? So when you connect, so SIS supports supported banks will be available through the primary selection page. So when you try to connect in an Intact, it connect with your bank feed, then you can just select, let's say for Australia, you have this country, select Australia. And what you can see here are the icons of the banks that are being supported by SIS. All right, so all these icons, when you click through this and carry on with the setup, that essentially lets you connect or choosing SIS as your aggregator, which is a direct bank feed, right? So I must say SIS is more reliable at the moment. So having go through these links, essentially just click through, let's say if you have Commonwealth Bank there, and just click on that and you will be led through the different steps that you have to follow in order to establish the connection. Right, so that's for Australia, and you have the icons in here that says all these icons in here will lead you to SIS bank feed connection. But what is Yodlee, right? So Yodlee, let's say for Australia or for New Zealand, right? We know that the primary aggregator, standard aggregator for bank feed is Yodlee. So for New Zealand, when you select New Zealand in there, if you try to, you have your find your bank field in here, wherein you can key in, let's say, the bank name. So in this case, I was looking for Westpac. So you will see here the available options like all these URLs. So that's the major distinction, right? That's the one thing that you have to look into. So when you try to connect your bank feed, right? So you have here New Zealand, you say if you select West there, you can see here all those which match your keyword, and those URLs are the ones that when you see the URLs in here, those indicate that the connections will be done through Yodlee, which means that if you proceed with this one here, then you will be led to key in your login credentials, like in ID and password, just to establish that connection. So that's the key distinction in there for Yodlee. Those with URLs are with Yodlee. All right. So let's go through other considerations in here for season Yodlee, right? So this is a hybrid of what you can actually see. Let's say for Australia, right? It doesn't prevent me from searching the bank. If I would like to search the bank in there, let's say Commonwealth Bank, right? I put there common, right? So I have here one with URL and one without, right? Okay, so if that's the case, let's say if you are looking at the banks in Australia, the one here, as what we said, right? If there is a URL, this connection will be done through Yodlee, right? So just make sure though that the key for a Yodlee connection is that have a look at the URL, make sure that that is the URL that you will log in when you try to log in through your online portal. So with the customers, when they log in, for example, with Commonwealth, then this is the URL, right? But the URL in here, if anything that has a URL, it points to Yodlee connection, right? But what you'll see here as well that you have Commonwealth Bank without any URL. So this item without the URL also works similar to the icons in here. So which means that if you find your bank, if you use your find your bank here and choose the one without any URL, it will also lead you to SIS connection. So this is similar. This particular one here is similar to clicking any of these icons in here. So I think Commonwealth should be somewhere there just being covered by this um, screen essentially. But let's say if you have Westpac there, you have the URL and you click this icon and you click this Westpac without the URL, they're one and the same essentially. Right. Yep. So just to reiterate, let's say for Australia, if you look for a bank in there, if you choose the one with URL, the connection will be through Yodlee. But if you choose the one without URL or any of the icons in here, it's similar to having a connection with SIS, right? So just to reiterate, right? So for Australia, um, have a look first, establishing the connection through SIS. And if you have any other options, right, no other options, you can make use of Yodlee by choosing the applicable link with the correct URL. In that case, let's say credit cards or maybe any other bank accounts not supported by SIS, then you would have to explore the option of just using the one with the URL in here, which is to be established through Yodlee, right? And yeah, just for other banks as well, let's say for Macquarie Bank, SIS in here supports account numbers starting with 1 or 9. So if you choose anything in here, so if you click on that icon previously, let's say for Macquarie in here, and the account number is not 1, it's not starting with 1 or 9, then it will just give you an error. So the option that you can do here is that, okay, you cannot make use of this icon for Macquarie, then might as well just look for Find Your Bank here, Macquarie, and look for the applicable option wherein the URL is the one being used by the customer and try to establish the connection there. But that actually deviates. So in this case, for Macquarie, SIS supports account numbers is starting with 1 or 9, but if you connect, right, we have no other options because the account number doesn't start with 1 or 9. It's a different account number or different bank account. So you have to establish the one with the URL, but that connection will just be with Yodlee. Does that make sense? And yeah, just to give you examples as well, this is just not all the forms, meaning just the header or a portion of the customer authority form. So when you go through with SIS connection, right, with SIS connection, it depends on the banks as well. So maybe the CAF here or the customer authority form may actually change over time, but this is just how it looks like. And just every CAF provides you information on how you would like to proceed with the bank fee. Just like, for example, ANZ in here, it gives you instructions how you can activate the request for bank fee, which is through their internet banking. But let's say for CBA, that will actually require you to submit the form into SIS. So this should be part, yeah, it should be part of the instruction itself that you have their email address there, wherein you can send the filled out and properly signed CAF or the customer authority form. And just make sure as well, especially if the CAF requires signatories, the signatories are the ones that are real, or those people have the real authority to sign, really, to authorize the bank to share those bank transactions to cease essentially. So make sure that the signatories are correct and the signatures are exactly the same as what you have filed with the bank, because we've seen other cases wherein requests for bank feeds are being rejected by the bank with technicalities. Let's say the signatures are quite different from what they have been provided before, and just make sure exactly like exact people who are authorized to sign the document, and the signatures are exactly the same as well as what they have in file. So yeah, again, so this CAF or the customer authority form, this is being generated um, and the process of establishing the bank feed for SIS. And this CAF provides you information depending on the bank on how the request will be processed or how the request for bank feed will be activated. All right. And yep, so we have to tell us about its feature. So when you try to connect with the bank, let's say with Australia in here, you have to tell us about it. So for example, if you have like Suncorp and as I mentioned earlier, right? So if the icon is not available in here, then you can try, meaning these icons are not available in SIS, then Suncorp, look for Find Your Bank here, and you will be presented with the available URL. So make sure that this is the URL that is being used by the customer to log in through their online portal. But if this is not the one that is being used by the customer, then you can click on Tell Us About It, which means that you are asking the Sage Banking Cloud to include that bank or URL or account type, right, in the future. So the Sage Banking Cloud will be accumulating those requests and may be um, created as an enhancement or in the long run. All right. And yep, so we have articles as well for bank feeds, and this is the link. And again, this may actually change over time as well. But you can have a look at this link with all bank feeds in there, just different features, what are different options as well per regions that are being noted there. But for Australia, New Zealand, and Asia, at least you have this recording, right, that you can just go back to. But we have articles as well or information from the help center that will help you and just give you more information on different options as well. You have FAQs there. You have even videos on how to maybe establish your connection with BankFeed. All right. So, yep. Hopefully this recording helps on how just a guidance essentially on how you can establish the bank feed for Australia, New Zealand, and Asia. Thank you.